Thanks for joining us here in Geneva for AI for Good Global Summit 2024, where I'm delighted to be joined by Sumner Norman. Sumner is co-founder and chief executive officer at Forest Neurotech. Sumner, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
So Forest Neurotech is a non-for-profit, and you work in the field of neuroscience and engineering. And of course, you create some of those highly prized and much talked about brain-machine interfaces. So tell us more.
Yeah, that's right. So Forest Neurotech is a new nonprofit focused research organization. Our goal is to create the first minimally invasive whole brain computer interface. So that's an interface that allows us to not only stimulate anywhere in the brain, but then to measure the changes in function in closed loop, so we can address the huge burden of mental health disorders, neuropsychiatric and cognitive disorders like OCD, bipolar disorder, and so on. So this is a new and exciting research tool and a clinical therapy that we're bringing to the world.
So I understand it's your first time attending the summit. What do you think a good outcome would be?
I think it would really be for people to recognize the massive burden, the massive number of people who go on every day that are treatment resistant, drug resistant, but live with these types of neurological dysfunctions and disorders, and all of the downstream effects in homelessness and all of the institutional structures like healthcare that we talk about all the time, and how they're grounded in this. And that if we can bring a solution, even one that only taps a small percentage of the market, let alone the whole thing, it could just make a massive, massive downstream impact.
And what are the most significant and impactful accessibility use cases for BMI, that's what it's called, that's the acronym, technology currently being explored or developed? And how can BMI address, you've already done it, but other critical and pressing needs for mankind, let's face it?
Yeah, the history of BMI has been around for a while, actually. A couple 100,000 people have deep brain stimulators implanted today to actually cure the essential tremor that they have, or the tremor associated with Parkinson's disease. And now they're moving into new indications like OCD. But it's still kind of few and far between. They're difficult to place. You need a very talented surgeon. It's very expensive. And then people are also developing, companies like Neuralink and Paradromics, commercial BCIs or BMIs, they're interchangeable terms, for the treatment of paralysis, to give people the ability to move back to those who've lost it to paralysis. But now we're moving into a new frontier where interacting with the whole brain will allow us to treat those circuits and systems that are associated with all of these other diseases that have an even bigger addressable market and group of people who are in desperate need.
So according to you, how can AI, the mighty power of AI, be harnessed to address the SDGs? And let's face it, there's no shortage of challenges faced by the world. At the moment, we've got poverty, hunger, health, education, etc. Can you give us maybe more examples based on your experience and maybe wishes of how we could use AI to solve those challenges?
I think AI can actually become the step change that's needed to make neurotechnologies useful to everybody that's living with any kind of disorder. And what's really missing right now is, I think you said it right, we can adopt AI, but you need to feed it. It needs a huge amount of data, it needs high quality data, and it needs diversity of data across a wide range of applications. So in our case, that means creating hardware and software that is accessible and usable, in our case implantable, so you can measure a person's brain state while they go about their daily life. And so we can feed these incredible AI algorithms that are far too hungry than we can provide them right now with our limited amount of data. Once we do that, we'll have a much greater understanding of the human brain, so we can develop therapeutics so much faster than we do today.
Neurotechnology sounds very exciting, and it's a very pioneering technology. But I have to ask you, isn't there a risk that this technology only serves the happy few, the rich, because it's an expensive technology, isn't it? What's your take on this?
Yeah, I think this is a risk with every new technology. And no technology in and of itself is good or bad, but in how we use it. And so I think it's important to think about the differential good development of neurotechnologies. And a part of that is the accessibility of that technology. So early on, there's no doubt, these devices just are going to be expensive. But unless they're adopted by a few, it will be difficult to get them to many. In our case at Forest Neurotech, we are developing a lot of our technology on the back of silicon manufacturing. We've seen silicon manufacturing before scale to massive, massive amounts of devices. So your iPhone or your smartwatch is affordable to a very, very rich person. It's also now that almost everyone on Earth has one of these devices in their pocket. And that's thanks to the fact that once you design it once, you can replicate it billions of times in silicon and benefit from the economies of scale. This is just one of the ways in which we're hoping to make this as accessible as possible.
So Sumner, since this year is the very first time you are attending the Global Summit, what have you heard so far that really resonates with you? Have you identified anything very exciting?
Yeah, I moderated a panel earlier, and it really, there was a couple of demonstrations where they actually had patients or users in the loop of these different neurotechnologies. And one of them was just really moving to see, the patient's eyes light up and he was almost crying. And this is a person who uses it every day, but I think he was seeing everyone else appreciate that. And I think it really reinforced an existing belief of making sure that the stakeholders, including clinicians and the patients and users themselves, are really in the loop at all points. It can be easy when you're developing such a far-flung technology that almost sounds sci-fi to get too hung up in the technical abilities and forget that sometimes the patients want something that's actually very simple, that might be closer than you think.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your insights and the fantastic work you are developing at Forest Neurotech. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
That was Sumner Norman, who's the co-founder and chief executive officer at Forest Neurotech. Thank you for watching.